你好，我喜欢你一切都好. I hope you're doing well. I really do feel embarrassed when I have to release some of that negative energy. Thank you very much for staying with me. It's really very embarrassing to me. If I could maturely address it, that is a dose of the very real pain I have in my life that I must set aside in order to maturely deliver my information. Because I do understand that if I get on here and I start shooting my mouth off about what I'm actually living and why, you're not going to be able to properly focus on the useful information I am giving you. And I do understand the severity and the relevance to the information that I'm giving. So, thank you very much for maturely accepting that. I love you all, but I'm not using this moment for that purpose, because I really do sincerely feel bad when I leave my listeners and my viewers in poor energy. So I'm going to change my energy right now in this video for you and carry on about my day. 再次感谢你的支持. Thanks again for your support. Happy Father's Day. Lots of great fathers in my neighborhood and online. Remember, you don't need the calendar to appreciate your father, but fathers deserve a day to be appreciated as well, obviously. It's normal for me not to see my father or my children on Father's Day, but respectfully, I love my father very much, and I hope he has a wonderful day. My father knows that his idea of a wonderful day is a fair amount different than mine. My father's idea of a great day is sitting on the wharf with a bobber in the water, not giving a fuck if he ever caught a fish, because that wasn't really what it was about. My father went fishing with me, naturally, over the years, and without getting into it too much, he knows it was more his thing than mine. But respectfully, I went along, and I love him very much, and I hope he has a wonderful day for him. The 12-string guitar that you commonly see in my videos, that is my father's, that he pretty much surrendered to me. And the first drum kit I ever owned, my father bought it for me. I actually have an extremely acute memory. I can remember he bought it in March. It was actually March 20th, which is hard for you to believe because it was when I was 16. But he bought it out of his income tax money. And the reason he did was because I officially was being a complete fucking asshole to my parents about the fact that I still did not own a drum kit. It was quite a while that I was asking, but respectfully, my parents did not have the means to buy me a drum kit. I know that now. Well, I knew that then too, but I can have more respect for it now. And I mean, there's lots of times over the years that I felt like ditching the fucking kit I have for different reasons. But if I had, I wouldn't have had a drum kit in my studio for this period of time. And so I'm thankful I held on to them. But he bought me my first drum kit, and my father always had the tolerance to allow me and my friends to come over and jam at his house on Saturday regularly to get our practice before we could play some live, free, all-age shows locally. And it definitely took tolerance. My father grew up on Randy Travis and Alan Jackson, and I was playing Cannibal Corpse and Chuck Schuldiner. So he still, in that little house he had, let us set up and play, which obviously was influential to my life. And respectfully, we don't own our children, and our children don't own us. And my father and I are very different individuals, and we understand that maturely. Respectfully, I am very different from most people around me because of the significant things I've done with my health. And respectfully, it separates me from everybody around me, generally, respectfully. But I love my father very much. He's always been very tolerant to me, and I hope he has a great day. I would like to talk about my children for a moment, but first I would like to discuss, if you have a child that has a heavy imagination, it's really important that that child gets to honor their imagination. Just like if you take on a dog, you need to be willing to put in the time to give it its exercise. And if it's an asshole when it doesn't get its exercise, is that entirely the dog's fault? Then with a dog, you always have to be willing to do that, because the dog isn't going to get to a point where it's just going to get up and start taking itself for a walk. With a child, I would like you to correlate that same concept to a child with a big imagination. Whether if their parents have that imagination or not, that child still does. And so that parent cannot be that child, and that child cannot be that parent. And the parent just has to be able to allow that child to flex their imagination, to be who they are. But if your child does have a big imagination, they also need a great deal of grounding, because you need to think about imagination in the mind almost like helium in a balloon. It's just going to take your child. And if your child there's all kinds of different degrees of imagination, right? And if your child has a little bit of imagination, it's not as much of a concern. But if you have one with a really big imagination, well, that child will just float off. And they need you as their parent to keep them grounded. I do feel like my parents had done that for me. I didn't have anybody that was able to really super nurture the talent, but they kind of did, in that they kept me grounded and didn't let me float away too much, right? In their own unique ways, of course, because my mom was not my father was not my mom. But, so in that, you could see how you want to allow your child to flex their imagination comfortably. You want to be able to encourage that, because that is what's going to bring them to a peaceful place in their own, is being able to be comfortable to use their imagination and be peaceful and loving. And at the same time, your child should reach a point where they don't need their parent to supply them with that understanding of their own imagination. So you should be able to nourish it for them when they're young, but then once they reach a certain age, well, they have to know they have this imagination and they have to flex it in their own way. And with that said, without saying too much, thank you very much for consciously parenting your child. I love seeing my children's imaginations come to life before my eyes. There are very few things in my life that give me a feeling anywhere near what I experience when I see my children flexing their imagination. Due to my understanding of imagination. Just like I said, my father knows that fishing was more his thing than mine. Well, in reference to my son Stephen, my older boy, when I see him flex his imagination, he's not speaking 6 languages and singing in 17, but he is speaking in binary in a way where he's just so smart at computers. And when I see him flex his imagination, it's really towards video games and all that stuff. And I know there's a great market there. And respectfully, a lot of the times he overwhelms me when he talks to me about it, because he talks about it so quickly. And it's just not my line of expertise, but he's really smart at it. And when I see him flex his imagination in that way, that's when I really see him flex it, because it's not about me. It's not about something we're connecting on. It's just him. And I love him unconditionally. We have flexed our imaginations together over the years in lots of ways. Again, he does play bass, but he doesn't sing and dance, and he has very logical reasons as to why he's led in other directions. But we used to play cards together, and like playing cards, and we made up our own game, We called it Tens, and it did make sense as a title if you knew how to play the game, which I'm not going to get into. But we made up our own card game and we played that. It was compounded from a couple different games that we knew. And we did create multilingual Scrabble together. And in that, we were expanding our own intelligence and possibilities in the Scrabble game. We always enjoyed Scrabble. We connect in math skills and chess. And I do like a lot of the vintage video games, and he is more into vintage video games, I think, but he's got the screens all around him. So I'm very thankful for my son, Steven. I can definitely appreciate his intelligence. And I also know that he understands that my energy resembles Dre's energy a fair amount more, in that Dre is also big on singing and dancing and being creative, but also Dre is very active and hard to remain grounded like I was. But very directly, Steven isn't like that, but it's because Steven is very maturely keeping himself grounded. He has imagination, he flexes, but it just doesn't, because like imagination in the mind is like helium to a balloon. So his doesn't drift him off because he keeps himself grounded in that way. I was not able to keep myself grounded in that way, but my mom definitely kept me grounded, and my father allowed me, like I said, the breathing room, but he also helped remain grounded. So I love seeing Dre express his imagination through music and art naturally. Dre and I have danced together as long as he could stand. And we just share a lot in that department. So when I see him mimicking movies that he likes, like he quotes a lot of Spider-Man movies, and all the different types of Spider-Man are very distinct to him, and he'll talk to you in a very serious manner about Spider-Man and all those things. And he enjoys drawing and flexing his creativity as well. So when we're together, I try to help him do that. Now, I discovered my own personal need to dance, and I didn't really have anyone to dance with. So naturally, dancing with him is extra rewarding for me. And again, Steven does have very logical reasons why he's not as much into it, but I don't play multilingual Scrabble with Dre. So we do have things that we enjoy doing all together, but respectfully, due to the situation, we don't get many opportunities to all be together. But when we do, we all understand the values of family, and we're all comfortable to be ourselves. Now, we are all men, or guys, right? We're all very comfortable with expressing our emotions, and we're all comfortable with crying when we have to, but being mature about it. And I think a lot of those cliches about men are really outdated. Emotional energy happens to us all. It's not about your gender, and we don't really want to fill our screens with a bunch of crying people regardless of gender, but we don't want people to think that crying is a bad thing. Crying is very healing for the individual. But again, I gotta go meditate, so I gotta get going. 我必须去。再次感谢你的支持. Thanks again for your interest. 我爱你们. I love you all. Happy Father's Day. Peace and love to all God's children. 为我们的孩子感谢上帝. Thank God for our children. 再见.